Okay. Computer. I believe Director McCarthy is going to be heading out at 2:30, so we'll kick off now. Okay, so welcome everyone to the board meeting of the Alberta and Clayoquot Regional District. I'm John Jack, the chair. We'll call to order, and first off, we'll recognize that we're conducting our business today, primarily on the territories of the Nuu-chah-nulth people in the Alberni Valley, specifically the Huu-petchisitt and the Tishaut First Nations, but we are very likely coming live to you today from plenty of other First Nations within Nuu-chah-nulth and maybe even Coast Salish, and maybe even the Lekwungen speaking people. With that, we have a full agenda. And I'll just note to everyone, attendees and delegates, that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on YouTube. You can get there through our website, or if you just search for Alberni and Clayoquot Regional District in YouTube, it comes up right away. And from there, we do have an agenda that is full. I'm uncertain if we have anything to add to the agenda, however. Is that the case?
Mr. Chair, there is one late item that was circulated to directors and also posted on our website for consideration. Under 8H, it's a request for decision for Port Alberni Port Authority yard space rental agreement.
And that will go
8H.
8H. Great. Are there any other items? Seeing none, we can entertain a motion to adopt the agenda, please. Thank you, Director McNabb, seconded by Director Roberts. Any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, does anyone have any declarations? Or gifts exceeding $250 or conflicts of interest or perceived? Okay, seeing none, we'll move forward. Adoption of minutes under 4A, we have the AVRA Advisory Committee meeting minutes dated March 23rd, 2021. Thank you, Director Paulson, seconded by Director McNabb. Do you have a comment, sir? Go ahead.
Yes, there was a very small typo in my report with regards to 911. There was an S missing off of, I don't have it right in front of me because I haven't scrolled down to it here, but if the secretary reads through it, she can find it, I'm sure.
Okay, thank you for that. And I would note on the agenda, we spelled Andrew Cuthbert's name wrong. It's not Andres. So with that, any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Great. Okay, next up is the Board of Directors meeting dated March 24th, 2021. Thank you, Director Roberts. Do we have a second? Thank you, Director Beckett. Any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Yeah, that brings us to petitions, delegations, and presentations. Oh, sorry, Dr. McNabb, please go ahead.
I got ahead of myself there. The mistake was on the March 24th board meeting minutes.
Okay.
My 911 report. Thanks. Sorry.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so that brings us to petitions, delegations, and presentations. So we have a, generally speaking, a 10-minute maximum for presentations. And so with that in mind, if I ever hold up 2 fingers or 1 finger, and you can see it because usually people are presenting, so it's hard to see, that's okay. But that usually means you only have 2 or 1 minute left. When I do cut you off, we'll usually just hit pause to see if the board wants you to continue with your presentation. I may call an audible and just let you finish if I think you're pretty close to the end of your presentation. And with that, we do have first up introductions. So I have some new faces to introduce. So I have Jenny and Heather here. So Jenny, if you want to take it away, please go ahead.
Thanks. It is my pleasure to introduce Eddie Kunderman, who is our new manager of operations. He has joined our community services department at the beginning of the month. He will be taking over for water systems, Salmon Beach, and transit, which is excellent because he comes to us from BC Transit. So with lots of skill in that area. Eddie is originally from Port Alberni, so we're very excited to have him on board, and I think he's pretty happy to be here.
Great, thank you and welcome. And Heather, if you wanted to, please go ahead.
Thanks. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm happy to have Karen Freeby join the ACRD. Karen started last week as the Protective Services Coordinator. Karen comes to us from the city of Port Alberni, where she's been an employee since 2004. Karen was a recreation programmer and most recently came to us as the acting communications manager of the city. Karen also spent 4 months last year working in our emergency operations center, helping with our COVID response. So Karen will be looking after the ESS program for the Alberni Valley, as well as supporting the emergency programs here in Port Alberni and on the West Coast and Vancouver. So please join me in welcoming Karen.
Thank you on behalf of the board. Welcome to the team. It's great to see. Okay, so with that, Dr. Paulson, please go ahead.
Well, I on behalf of the board, I just want to welcome both of these dynamic young people to the regional district family. Eddie Kunderman. Eddie, I played ball many years ago with your dad, and we won't hold that against you. And Ms. Freedy, Karen Freedy and I were hired basically on the same day several years ago, and we've become good friends and workmates. And welcome to the regional district, but sorry to lose you from the city. So welcome to both of you. Should be fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think that brings us to item 5B, which is a presentation from KPMG regarding our audit findings for the year ending December 31st, 2020. I'm just looking here. There's Lenora, and is Daniel here? I'm looking. I do not see him. Is it just you, Lenora? Oh, there we go. Okay, please go ahead.
Great, thanks. Hello, everyone. Nice to see you again. I think we've met in previous years. My name is Lenora Lee. I'm an audit partner with KPMG, and I'm joined by my colleague, Dan Healy, who is the senior manager. We were both heavily involved in the audit this year and worked very closely with management to complete the audit. In terms of the audit findings report, we just wanted to touch on a few highlights with you. Our report is included in your package, and we are substantially complete the audit at this time. So the only items that remain outstanding are discussions with you as directors prior to acceptance of the financial statements. And overall, I'd say the audit did go very smoothly once again this year. We did complete the audit entirely remotely. So typically we are on site in the boardroom for about a week or so, and that was completed entirely from home or our offices this year. So with those logistics, we were able to obtain all of the support and documentation we needed to complete the audit in just the manner that we would have in person, and with all of the same quality standards that we would be following in person as well. So I'll just turn it over to Dan here, who will touch on some of the highlights of our audit findings report in the package.
Thanks, Lenora. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. So say we weren't sort of planning on doing a page flip, but certainly if there are questions as we sort of go through it, please sort of feel free to answer them or to ask them, and we'll do our best to answer them. So in the executive summary, it sort of just goes through, say, some of the highlights in the report and some of the highlights of where we're at today, and some of the findings. Sort of first thing to highlight to everybody here is that there were no changes from our audit plan that was originally presented to you, I think sort of back in January time. One minor adjustment or amendment to our audit plan, specifically around estimates, that I'm sure as everybody recalls, there was a new auditing estimate standard that was effective this year. And when we sort of start the process, it's a bit of judgment in terms of where we think or the number of different areas that's going to impact. And as we got into the audit is that we revised our plan specifically around the additional work around useful life of tangible capital assets, and instead focused all of the additional effort on the landfill liabilities. So that was really sort of the only sort of change. In terms of areas of focus have been, we're pretty consistent with last year and historically that, we spend a good chunk of the audit looking at revenues, tangible capital assets, and the landfill closure liabilities. And we'll talk in a little more detail in terms of some of the things that sort of came up through the audit in those areas. Adjustments and differences. Really, the uncorrected differences are pretty consistent with last year, and again, sort of historically, a couple of sort of disclosure differences just around how capital assets are disclosed and presented in the financial statements. And we understand there's certainly an operational rationale for how it's, how and why they are presented in the way they are. So it in themselves hasn't impacted our audit report. The other item that sort of remains uncorrected is in terms of the estimate of the landfill closure liability, and we'll talk about that in a little bit in a couple of minutes. So moving on to, for those of you following along, is page 6 in the PDF. So our audit risks, and really this is to just to report back to you around, we identified 2 significant risks in the audit, and these 2 significant risks are the ones that are required by professional standards. And that's the risk of management override, being that management is in a unique position because of their access to, to various things to be able to override internal controls. And also the risk around fraudulent revenue recognition. Revenue recognition, you're allowed to rebut, and we did. We don't sort of see any specific issues around revenue that would cause us any concern. And as far as management override, there were no specific things that came up through the audit that we think that there's an elevated risk at the regional district. But there is, as I say, it's a non-rebuttable risk, and we are required to do work around that. And as part of that, there were no issues as a result of the testing we did. On page 7, on the areas of audit focus, really the only item on here that I sort of wanted to identify is around the BEC restart grant. That obviously that's a new item this year, and in the financial statements, you likely would have seen the additional schedule that's there. So, as I say, no issues noted any of our testing around revenues, deferred revenues. Similar sort of comment around, say, tangible capital assets as last year. So nothing specific to talk about that. Moving on to page 9, the critical accounting estimates. I said this year with the new auditing standard around estimates, there is a requirement to take a much more granular look at all of the inputs to any sort of significant estimates. And so, which it's not entirely or wholesalely different than our approach in previous years, but it is sort of just a little bit more rote in terms of how and what we look at, and the extent of audit evidence that we're required to gather. Fundamentally, what this is sort of we're sort of left with is exactly the same sort of issue or finding that we had in previous years, that while we agree with the total amount of closure costs that are going to be incurred, there's a bit of a difference, a judgmental difference in terms of the cost or the timing of those expenses. And so what this sort of results in is sort of an over accrual on the balance sheet that I say it's a timing issue rather than an actual cost quantum issue. So to that end, that we're certainly comfortable in terms of leaving that as a judgmental difference between the 2 calculations. And sort of moving on to page 11, that's the uncorrected differences, just a little more detail around the over accrual of the landfill closure liabilities. And there were no corrected differences that the management made through the process. So a testament to the work that Terry and Doug do. And on page 12, sort of the final piece is that there is a requirement that we discuss with the board any material weaknesses or significant control deficiencies we identify. We didn't identify any control deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal controls around financial reporting, but we do highlight sort of 3 matters that for your attention, but they're really sort of considered other matters and certainly have not impacted our overall risk assessment or approach to the audit. In the appendices, just some additional information in terms of current developments and audit trends. There's some links there in terms of the pandemic resources and all that sort of good stuff. So I wasn't sort of planning on flipping through there. Nothing sort of specific in there that I wanted to talk to. So with that being said, I think that was all I wanted to present. If there are sort of any questions or comments.
Right. Thank you, Daniel and Nora. Are there any questions or comments? Okay. Seeing none, I'd like to thank you for all the work that you've done. And yeah, thank you. And the format of the reporting is very nice. Thank you. It really helps bring it together and bring it to life.
Perfect.
Great, and thanks once again to Terry, her team, and all of management that we worked with. Great effort in terms of being able to work together as a team and provide us all of the support that we needed with a very clean audit result.
Actually, I do have one question, and I think this is just my own curiosity, but how have both of you found working remotely? And I guess this is Terry as well. Is this something that we may continue in the future and just have you come in once or twice during the audit period? Like when this is all over, whenever that happens, right?
I'll start with that.
Go ahead.
So last year, the audit team showed up, worked Monday, Tuesday, and got sent home as we got into lockdown. And it was a challenging audit because we were both trying to figure out what we had and what they were needing. So this year went way smoother with us being more prepared electronically to be providing them documents, and just this, we were a lot more streamlined in getting stuff back and forth to each other, which was great. 2 years ago, I would have never believed I'd say this, but I really miss having the auditors in the boardroom and having the opportunity to kind of chat things through. And it's an intense week for all sides, but it is nice to have that. So I think maybe I would guess that we might go back to some sort of hybrid where they're not here all week, but pop up for a couple days or something. But yeah, I haven't talked about the KPMG side of that yet.
Yeah, we're open and welcome any recommendations you have as well. We do also miss in-person interaction with your team as well as many others. But certainly we're able to do what we need to do electronically, but being in person is always a benefit, and sometimes quite easy for some efficient correspondence as well.
Great, that's good to hear. Thank you for that. Okay, so with that in mind, we will move on to the next item. Thank you for coming, by the way. This is a good report.
Thank you.
We have Mike Rattan and Mark Duncan and Andrew Cuthbert from AVRA Advisory Committee and Arrow Edge and Urban Systems. And I don't know who's speaking first, so I'm going to say, Mike, if you wanted to make introductions, that probably worked the best.
Thanks, John. I really appreciate that. Just a couple of introductory comments from me before I turn it over to Mark and Andrew. Want to thank the committee who participated so well in all of our sessions. Took lots of time and lots of thinking and lots of time outside of our meetings as well. So it wasn't possible without that incredible input from everybody on the committee. But I also want to thank the board of the ACRD for setting up such a strong committee. The advisory committee represents many different aspects of life in the Valley, and it's important to have such a diverse committee in order to get the input needed in order to come up with a document like this. Also want to thank the Janice Hill and Doug Holmes for all of their work, as well as Mark Fortune and Jenny Brown. Because without the staff support, we couldn't have done what we needed to do. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mark Duncan and Andrew Cuthbert to review the recommendations that come out of this report. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. There is a full report on your website, and of course you've all read it. So we will quickly try to just whip through some of the highlights of working with the committee. Maybe just a brief agenda that we're what we'll do, we did quite a large survey, which Andrew will take you through. We interviewed the tenants. We worked with the committee on, it's new for us too. We had to use the Zoom meetings. In some respects that was good. In other respects it was more difficult, but it allowed us more time to look at the results. And we'll end with giving you what the recommended vision is and the strategic plan. So I'll turn it over to Andrew to quickly go through the survey.
All right, good afternoon. Yeah, thanks. It was a great process. The survey itself was one of the initial outreach things that we did during the development of this plan, and we got a huge turnout and really good response rate, which was, thank you to the committee for putting it out there. Most responses were from the Port Alberni area, which was nice. I'll just take you through some of the highlights of what we found. So people generally indicated that they were very interested in the airport, and they're especially interested in economic development at the airport. And yeah, the high engagement rate is a great indication of that. People also highlighted a few challenges with the airport. Many of these were due to just like existing communication channels, and that's partly due to the nature of the airport being more industrial. But yeah, some of the community members mentioned being disconnected from the airport. They didn't perceive the benefit of the airport related to their tax investments, and they just generally didn't know what was happening there. And indicated that the drag racing might have been a lost opportunity for community connection. And so all of these things informed the strategic initiatives that we'll talk about later on. And so the next bit was we also interviewed the tenants at the airport, and back to Mark for that one.
Yes, and there are approximately 15 tenants actually growing at the airport, and we talked to each of the tenants. Generally, they're quite happy. You have a very diverse mix of traffic at the airport, so there are some operational items, separation of aircraft, etc. There's a growing tenant base. In fact, all of your lots are now taken up, and so that's something that needs to be addressed in the future. It's an ideal glider and training airport because of your location. You have a wide open airspace, and that's a market which we talk about later. All the tenants appreciated the runway extension and the lighting. They were also very happy with the on-site caretaker adding security to the airport. They're very much in favor of marketing and development of the airport. There were some items which we recommend in the strategic plan, recommending longer leases for investment and a few capital improvements, which we'll cover later. In working with the workshop, we're working with the advisory committee. We had 3 individual workshops. We covered the background, we covered the survey and interviews in detail. We also looked at a number of comparison airports, did a strength weaknesses, a SWOT analysis, and we looked at a number of alternative visions going forward, and worked with the committee to come up with a vision and strategic plan. And I'll just give you just a snapshot of some of the alternative airports we looked at, or alternative roles that could be considered. And we used some example airports. For example, Kelowna would be a regional hub airport. It has an 8,000-foot runway. It has a large population base. The population base of Port Alberni is about 26,000. So that is a challenge in terms of promoting a regional hub. We also looked at general aviation airports. We used Shuswap Regional. which is sort of a similar type tourism region. It's also located about an hour and a half from both Kelowna and Kamloops airports, which is similar to your airport, which is located about an hour and 15 from Nanaimo and Comox airports. And we took a look at an industrial airport, Renton Municipal in Washington, and that's an interesting airport. The runway there is only 5,300 feet long, and every 737 that's produced by Boeing actually has their maiden flight off that runway. And you have a 5,000 foot runway, so you're well equipped to be a good industrial airport. So summarizing all of the work that we looked at in terms of a number of airports, obviously a role for an airport is influenced by its population, the catchment area, and the attributes of the area. Every airport is unique. Most airports in British Columbia suffer from obstacle limitation surfaces, that's OLS. So constraints are very common. You have those constraints, but you do have a 5,000 foot runway. BC is a very interesting area because we actually have more airports than anywhere else in Canada on a per capita basis. Just to give you an example, Nova Scotia with 1 million people have 2 airports with scheduled traffic, Halifax and Sydney, and Vancouver Island alone has 6 airports with scheduled traffic. So that's a very interesting scenario. Obviously, airports with plans, you can really influence the outcomes, and getting the community behind the airport is vital. Going on to our discussion with the committee, one of the things we feel that is an opportunity is to build on tourism opportunities, recognize the industrial strength. You have a very good industrial base with Coulson Air employing 70 to 100 technical people at that airport. And that is a major contribution to the community. We feel that whole benefit should be celebrated. Also, the niche markets that should be promoted. You know, you have very diverse operations from glider operations to 737s. You have a very attractive area, which I think people are discovering more and more. And I think there's an opportunity to build on partnerships with the Port Authority, the industry, and First Nations going forward. So after all of that, we've come up with what we recommend as the vision and mission statement. The vision is Vancouver Island's premier industrial airport, serving business, tourism, and aviation needs. And as a mission, supporting the diversified aviation clients, including firefighting, manufacturing, maintenance, flight training, tourism, flight charters, small air carriers, and cargo through professional and safe facilities, strategic partnerships, alignment with the community, and economic growth in the Alberni Valley region. And you have a unique situation where you share management and operations with Tofino Airport. So you actually have a very efficient management structure. Just moving on. So that was sort of a very quick run through to the mission and vision. And I'm going to have Andrew try to take you through the the 5 areas of the strategic plan, which we've matched to your district strategic plan. Go ahead, Andrew.
All right, and I realize we're at 10 minutes, so I just want to be conscious of that. And if we're okay to move ahead, we should be wrapping up soon.
Thanks, Andrew. I'll just do a quick, is it all right if we keep going? Yeah? Okay, looks like a broad consensus.
Okay, great. All right, so yeah, as Mark said, we tried to align the strategic initiatives in the plan to the focus areas in the ACRD strategic plan. So the first one being economic and COVID-19 recovery. These are mainly things related to celebrating the work that's already been done at the airport and future initiatives that are like on the horizon. So we're celebrating the new weather system, promoting the flying school, exploring the possibility of extending lease terms at the airport, and celebrating the existing employment at the airport, because it's a hugely important economic generator for the region. Number 2, this is speaking to some of the survey results, is communications and engagement with and making sure that the community really feels that they own the airport, or they have like a stake in it. So it's building upon the annual airport event that's already run out at AVRA, and working with tenants in the flying club there, and then looking at new marketing for the airport, so attracting new tenants and making sure that people are aware of the airport, and then just continued work with the advisory committee to build that relationship with the community and tenants and the broader community. In terms of infrastructure management, there's 3 main things here, and that's looking at the creation of a land use plan, a capital plan, and a servicing plan. And all 3 of these things would work together to explore what the potential for future development is at the airport. And so that would mean you get an indication of how much land is available, how many new tenants you could potentially host, and what the costs and implications might be in terms of capital and servicing. For 4, emergency management. So the airport already has a pretty major role as an aerial firefighting location, but we're also suggesting it should be ensure that it's a key part of the district emergency plan, and to just generally promote the medevac service that already happens there. And again, this is speaking to making sure that people know what happens at the airport and why it's important for the region. And number 5 is probably the most important. This is the partnerships and mutual benefits, and this is how a lot of these other suggestions will come to fruition. And that's partnering with local First Nations, the tourism sector, the Port Authority, and other Vancouver Island airports, and the province, in terms of getting a lot of this stuff built, or exploring ways to expand upon the airport's existing success. I'll turn it back to Mark. We've got some preliminary capital improvements listed, and then we should wrap up.
Yeah, I don't think I'll, maybe Andrew, just put those 2 slides up briefly. This listing of capital comes from both the interviews and the surveys. It is clearly the responsibility of either the tenant or the ACRD in terms of which of these would proceed. And I know that already Mark Fortune is starting to plan in terms of land use plan expansion, which is probably one of the more critical items to capture future growth. In summary, the investment you've made with the airport in terms of extending the runway and putting the lights in is already bearing fruit. And I think as a district, you should be very proud of that investment. And with this strategic plan, I think you have a good way forward for that airport in the future. And you'll be able to steal a lot of the lower mainland business that is already experiencing congestion. So that will back to you, Mike. Maybe just to summarize some of the decisions you'd like.
Well, as I said, all the decisions were a group effort, and we definitely came to great consensus on these decisions. And they're recommendations only, and it's up to the board of the ACRD to look at all of those recommendations that we have put together and decide how it fits in with their vision for the airport and which ones are doable and which ones aren't. And hopefully you'll look at it carefully and accept all or most of those recommendations. So thank you everybody for your time.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Are there any comments or questions? Director Cote, please go ahead. And then Director Bodner.
Thank you. I'd just like to say thank you to Mark and Andre, because it was very well done. It captured the vision very well from the Valley. I think that they've really identified all of our opportunities and worked with our group. And I recognize a few of the members here today joining in. So it was a very enthusiastic group, and lots of really good comments and suggestions made, and really helped to capture our vision of what we have here. And I'm really excited about moving forward on any of the recommendations that are coming forward. I think that it's very timely, and we want to show off our new airport runway expansion. And I think, this later on this year, as things start opening up, it's a great opportunity for us to do that and connect with the community. So thank you so much to you, gentlemen. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. I have Director Bodner and then Director McNabb.
Thank you. Yes, that presentation was great. I enjoyed reading the details of it. It is quite exciting. Two questions I wanted to know. One is, could you expand a little bit more on when you talk about tourism from the airport? Two, the other one, do you see small planes leaving from Port Alberni to take people over to Vancouver so they can make other connections for travel, for going to other areas in bigger planes?
Yeah, so the first one, in terms of tourism, with your 5,000-foot runway, you're already seeing a few private jets coming into the airport to deliver people either on fishing charters or whatever. I think that needs to be promoted and understood. I would think if you walk down a street in Vancouver, most people wouldn't even know there is an airport at Port Alberni. So I think there's a tourism opportunity there. One of the suggestions also is that have a board at the airport. So when you land at the airport, there's sort of an information board on all your tourism locations for even private pilots. So that's one aspect. In terms of the, let's say, scheduled traffic for connections to Vancouver, you did have a small air carrier before. As I indicated, there's already 6 airports with scheduled traffic. You have a real difficult time competing with say Nanaimo, that has a population base of 120,000 versus your population base. If you just consider the Port Alberni area without Tofino, you've got 26,000. So for an air carrier to make a decision to start operations there, you've got a lot of competition. Now, on the other hand, a place like Tofino, you have a very good, it's further away. It's the convenience of getting to the tourism location. I think that in the strategic plan, we've said encourage charter operations as a start, and you will always face the the concept of competition from Comox and Nanaimo. It's just a reality of your catchment area.
Thank you. Next up, I have Dr. McNabb. Is there anyone else? Okay, Dr.
So
Schaefer.
the one question I had, and maybe from the advisory board, maybe Mike or somebody knows the answer. As far as expansion is concerned, are we able to expand to the south across the access road where the parking lot is? Is that appropriate land for airport use?
It is actually an opportunity for expansion, and I'm glad you pointed that out. It may mean that we move some of our tenants a little bit. We just have to look at what those opportunities are. But frankly, every bit of land that is attached to the airport is an opportunity for expansion, and we need to look at all of those things.
Yeah, I know that in my days of flying that there were several small airports that I went to that you actually crossed an access road like that to park the plane or go get fuel or some other thing like that. So yeah, that's good. Thanks.
No, there's a good example actually in Kelowna, and I know Mark Fortune already has reserved some land for that opportunity.
Next up, I have Dr. Shannon and then Douglas.
Thank you. I just have a question regarding, in your comparisons with other airports, did you happen to have a look at what they're doing for tenants and lease rates? Because I noticed in the report there was quite a few comments of if we introduced landing fees, it would be quite discouraging to people. I mean, for when we're looking at opportunities to kind of ease some burden, if you want to call it, on the tax base of how this could maybe generate some more funds for itself. And then my other question was, this might be to Mike to the committee. When we talk about marketing opportunities and everything that we have here, and we talk about tourism, was it brought up, or is there an opportunity at all to work with the harbor as well, and if there's any seaplanes coming in? Thank you.
Maybe I can talk about the first one in terms of landing fees and market rates. You know, the reality is your market rate is an advantage to bringing people there. I mean, your fuel sales is your primary revenue source right now, and I think your land should be you know, your land leasing is a revenue source. I think you can have some other concessions. Your main economic driver for the district is the employment that you're generating at the airport. Landing fees is a tough one. If you're under 12.5, which is a small aircraft, generally it's free landing at most airports, but they do have ramp fees for so you're not going to have a lot of revenue there. But for example, Viking Air is using your airport to test their aircraft. There's an opportunity maybe to have an agreement with them and promote more fuel sales, etc., with them, and maybe a small facility. In terms of tourism, I'll turn that over to you, Mike.
Certainly tourism is always an opportunity, and it's something we would take advantage of if possible. But like anything, none of this happens unless you actually have someone in place that can devote the time to it. And so we need to be looking at an opportunity whenever it comes about to have someone who is specifically attached to the airport, at least for a period of time, to start looking at ways to implement some of these recommendations. It's a really exciting opportunity, and you know, as a valley, we've invested an additional $8 million into the expansion of this airport, and I'm sure, like everybody else, we want to see it actually used and to the fullest possible extent of its potential. So I think we'll get there. It's just a matter of making the plans and carrying them out step by step.
Thank you. And lastly, I think I have Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank Mark and Andrew for their excellent work, they answered all of the questions of the committee on a regular basis because it's a very specialized area, and I think they brought a lot of expertise, and so we're grateful for that. And just to point out that the staff recommendation is to approve the vision and the strategic plan, and also to direct staff to continue to work with the committee to determine how we can implement options for the board to subsequently consider in the months and years ahead.
Great. And on behalf of the board of directors, I'd like to thank you all for your great presentation. Hoping to see you again, maybe next quarter or something like that soon. Thanks.
Okay,
Great.
thank you
Thank you very much.
Okay, I think that finishes off petitions and delegations presentations, and it doesn't look like we have any correspondence for action. Before we get to the correspondence for information, motion, would anyone like to pull anything out? Dr. Shannon, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to highlight the letter, item J, the Albernies Farmers Institute letter. This has come to the board out of our Ag Development Committee meeting, just to bring awareness to the board that insurance costs are becoming quite problematic for a lot of agriculture ventures. I believe this is going to go to the AAC committee for some further discussions on to whether there might be some action requested from us. But for now, just so everybody's aware that it's kind of high on the radar right now. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else? Seeing none, we can do. Oh, Dr. Roberts, please go ahead.
Through the chair to Director Shannon, having a dairy operation, has your insurance gone up considerably? Just a question.
Yeah, I know a little bit different for us as a dairy farm because we're under a federal management system. So we've been, it went up a little bit, but not at the rate that it's going for smaller or medium-sized farms where they don't kind of have the backing of this federation or anything to kind of help everything along. So that's where it's going to be a big impact, is the small and medium farms that are kind of independent. And the issues is rising costs, as well as maybe not even being able to get insurance from a home if there's barns and things like that, just because of requirements from the insurance companies. So there's some people that are even looking at like, I'm just not going to insure and try and save up money themselves to kind of have their own insurance in case anything happens, because it's just so difficult right now.
Dr. Minion?
Yeah, thanks for that. I read all of the comments and the letters of support, or the questions and concerns that people have with regards to insurance, and hopefully the province can step in and help out. It's really deplorable that it's going to put people out of business. I know for sure. And yeah, so anyway, cheers, and let's hope we can get something together. Thanks for that.
I have Dr. Minions and then Dr. Cote.
Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Shannon, for bringing this forward. I just wanted to broaden this out a little bit, that beyond just the agriculture sector, a lot of small businesses are really struggling with insurance costs, in some cases doubling, in some cases even more in the last year or so. We know, of course, strata insurance has been a huge issue. I think that we might want to look at like an ABICC or UBCM resolution for the province to consider stepping in, or maybe not the province, but if you look at some of the solutions that have been come up with, and we look at ourselves in local government, insurance was an issue. So the Municipal Insurance Association stepped in and brought products that worked specifically for municipalities. And it might be time for other options to be looked at. And I think that UBCM is a great opportunity to pursue that type of thing on a broader level. I know for myself, on top of a very difficult year owning a restaurant during the pandemic, my insurance costs went up by 60% this year. And that was just, I've never had a claim on anything, let alone on my business. And that was just lack of competitiveness in the insurance market right now, and insurers just taking advantage. Additional to that, I do know of 2 local businesses this year that actually did shut down because of their insurance costs skyrocketing so high. Again, no claims. So I thank you for bringing this forward, because I do think this is something that the board could be turning our minds to and trying to take to a higher level to actually maybe see some change over the next couple of years. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Dr. Cote.
Thank you. As the MIA representative for AVICC, it's interesting to see how that insurance association is actually pooling, and I'm sure that that's what Ontario and Alberta are doing for farms, small businesses. So I'd like to ask MIA if they have any solutions for us. Sorry about that.
All right. Dr. Shannon, go ahead.
Thank you. Just a quick follow-up comment. I believe there was discussion at the ADC about a resolution going to AVICC or UBCM, but I think that's the conversation they're wanting it to come through the AAC, not the ADC. So we might be seeing something like that come up fairly quickly. Thank you.
Starting to think we may want to have a committee of the whole meeting dedicated to agricultural issues at some point in the near future. It seems like there's a few that are coming up that we can all kind of take it all into one, hopefully before UBCM as well. Dr. Cote?
Thank you. I'm not sure if this would work for all small business, but for the small farm insurance, it might be an opportunity to bring it forward as a late resolution to AVICC.
Okay. We should look into that. Douglas, if we could make note and maybe bring that up at the committee, try to walk it in at the next meeting, if that's in time. I don't know if it is. You're muted though.
The deadline has passed some time ago, so but we will look and see what the possibilities might be. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, thank you for bringing that up, Dr. Shannon. Are there any other items to be picked out of the correspondence for information? And if not, we do have a motion to receive all of the correspondence. Okay, moved by Dr. Shannon, seconded by Director Beckett. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, that brings us to request for decisions and bylaws. So this is the financial statements. Terry, please go ahead.
Sure. So the auditors went over the audit findings report, but I just wanted to highlight a few things from the financial statements themselves today. So despite the pandemic, our financials actually look very similar to the prior year, as we do not operate any recreational or conventional travel transit services. So a lot of local governments have financial statements that look substantially different in 2020 than their normals, but we're lucky in the type of services that we provide at the regional district that it was I wouldn't say business as usual, but as close to business as usual during a pandemic that you can get. During the year, we constructed or purchased $2.4 million worth of assets. In terms of debt, we paid off a large portion of the Alberni Valley Multiplex debenture. There's one small section that we didn't need a tax requisition for, but is remaining for 2021. But it's exciting to have that be done with. The regional district did not do any borrowing ourselves, but we did borrow on behalf of the city of Port Alberni, $4.45 million for their wastewater treatment facility. The auditors did mention, but we got the COVID restart money in the fall of 2020, which came with some reporting requirements. So on the last page of the financial statements, you'll see an unaudited schedule that basically lays out what we have allocated those funds for 2020. And we'll have to continue doing that schedule every year until we spend all of the funding that they have provided. The auditors also mentioned there are some items that they would like better disclosure on in the statements. These have been on their recommended to-do list for a couple of years, but we haven't been able to find the resources to do it. But with the added personnel in the finance department this year, they're definitely on the work plan. So hoping for some revised statements for you for next year. And then just the other item that I'll be bringing some more education to the board here in the next couple of months is regarding the new fairly substantial standard of asset retirement obligations that doesn't come into effect until 2022 or 2023, but is going to take a lot of work. So staff is just in the process of getting some training with regard to that, and we'll be bringing some education pieces just so that the board knows what's coming. There will be some there'll be significant changes to the financial statements, but there's also going to be some financial implications of gathering this information, such as consultants or engineering firms and environmental experts to kind of create this information that we're going to need about the retirement of our assets. So we'll bring some education to you hopefully in the next couple of months to just keep you guys moving along with us, and then we'll see how that goes. And beyond that, we're just happy to have the audit process completed and looking for the board to adopt the financial statements today.
Great, thank you. I have Dr. McNabb up front. Please go ahead.
So one thing I was going to ask when the auditor was there, but I thought I'd better ask it later, is the process of strategic reserves, was that vetted with the auditor?
Like setting certain thresholds for our reserves, or?
Well, just the sort of the bookkeeping process of using the strategic reserve the system versus taxing in the year that it was
the operational reserves.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, we did talk about that. It is something that many other regional districts use. So it was a process that they were already aware of. But yes, we did have a conversation regarding that.
Yeah, it's just that it masks the cost of government. And that's kind of, I didn't know if they had kind of a judgment with regards to that or not, but thanks.
No, yeah, no, they are supportive of reserves and keeping the revenues from the major fluctuations that can occur at times. So yes, they are aware of them.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Okay, would anyone like to move the adoption? Thank you, Director Roberts. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Bodner. Okay, any further comments? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. So are you, Director McCarthy, are you heading out now? Just in time? Oh, got it. You're on mute.
Yes, I am. Sorry.
Okay, well, thank you for being here, and safe travels if you're traveling.
Yes, okay, thank you. Bye.
Alrighty. Oh, that brings us to the item 8B, the Visioning and Strategic Plan Report for AVRA. Dr. Cote, please go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to make the recommendation that
Okay.
the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors approve the Alberni Valley Regional Airport Visioning and Strategic Plan, and that the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors direct staff to work with the Alberni Valley Regional Airport Advisory Committee to develop implementation options for the board's consideration.
Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Bodner. Okay, any further comments? Dr. Cote, please go ahead.
Thank you. I'd just like to say that this was really a great visioning exercise, putting this strategic plan together, and so timely with our new expansion. Really appreciate all the comments from all of the participants. Everybody came forward with great ideas, and great support for our expansion of our airport. So really want to keep on this and thank the staff and for their contribution to this as well. Thanks.
Yes, definitely. I think it needs to be echoed. Thanks to Mark and Jenny, if you can let him know, that would be great. Alrighty, are there any further comments? Okay, see none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, that brings us to item C, the lease renewals. Jenny, if you wanted to take us through the three of them.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this year we're looking to do bulk renewals for both the LVA and the AVRA. So when we've already had leases established for previously for tenants, then if they're coming up for renewal, we're trying to just do them at the front end of the year if possible. This year we have 3 leases that are coming up for renewal, the short-term leases. One is for the Alberni Valley Flying Club, and another one is for Alan Paul, and the third is for Bowerman Excavating. These are all being renewed at our standard lease rate with the CPI increase for 3 years with our newly updated lease agreement template, which is attached.
Okay, thank you for that. Would Dr. Paulson, please go ahead.
Just before we go on to these motions, I just wanted to make a comment that came out of the visioning exercise, and it did have something to do with the leases and the length of leases. And I did talk to a new tenant out there, and he said he will approach the regional district for a longer lease term rate outside of the standard 3-year. I think for capital investment, we need to be more imaginative with our leases and look at 5, 10, 15, or 20-year leases. The gentleman that I talked to will be putting a temporary structure, but he really was quite frank with me, saying that he would not invest in a permanent structure unless he had a longer lease agreement with the airport. But that'll be stuff that we have to deal with in the near future, and it's just something for us to consider.
Thank you, Director Paulson. Well, I think that's well taken. Dr. Roberts, please go ahead.
Through the chair to Director Paulson, and I believe that Jenny can update you on that. There is a very similar situation that has occurred at the Tofino Airport, and that's for a long-term lease. And the rationale there was because of the amount of money that was going into building and actually getting I believe it was a mortgage, but I'm not absolutely certain. And the only way you could do that, get a mortgage for that, would be for a much longer term lease. And perhaps Jenny can update us on that. Thank you.
Through the chair, yes. So we are working at 1 and potentially more long-term leases at the LBA, and we will potentially be doing that as well at AVRA. At the Long Beach Airport, we have one complication, which is a challenge, which is dealing with contaminated sites. So there's a list of things we need to do in order to make an application for subdivision, which is required in order to do a long-term lease. As I'm getting up to speed on airports, I am learning as I go, but also surprised at just how much effort really is required. So, which explains why it's been such a challenge in the past for the regional district. And it's just intense for staff and to get resources involved, but we are starting to work through the process because we realize that that is really so important for the airports in order for them to prosper and develop.
Thank you. Any further comments? We do have one motion with 3 parts here. Director Cote, please go ahead.
Okay, I'll make the motion that the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors approve the following lease renewals at the Alberni Valley Airport for 2021. Number 1, Hangar Group, Alberni Valley Flying Club, lease lots 3 and 22 at the rate of $3,580.38 per year plus GST, and yearly BC CPI increases for a 3-year term from September 1st to 2021 to August 31st, 2024. 2, Alan Paul, lease lot 7 at a rate of $1,838.67 per year plus GST and yearly BC CPI increases for a 3-year term from April 30th, 2021 to March 30th, 2024. And 3, Bowerman Excavating Limited, lease lots 8 and 17 at a rate of $3,278.80 per year plus GST and yearly BC CPI increases for a 3-year term from April 30th, 2021 to March 30th, 2024. Phew.
Okay, and Director Paulson, you'll second? All right, thank you. Any further comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so that brings us to item D, which is a renewal of the license of occupation for the community septic field. Salmon Beach, sorry about that. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So there was a license of occupation that was established 10 years ago with 2 10-year renewal terms. We're at the end of the first 10-year renewal, and staff have worked together, ACRD staff and Toquat Nation staff, to ensure that the license is still meeting the best interests of both communities, and we're able to renew as is right now. So we're making a recommendation that we enter into that 10-year renewal.
Great. Oh, sorry, Cal. Dr. Roberts, we were just getting to the Salmon Beach renewal of license of occupation for the community septic field. Would you like to move the recommended motion to renew? Oh, you're muted though.
Thanks for that. That the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors authorize the CAO and chair to enter a 10-year extension for the license of occupation for the Salmon Beach Community Septic Field land until March 30th, 2031.
And I'll second.
Thank you, Director Johnson. Okay. Any further comments? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, that brings us to item E, which is the FCM convention, May 31st to June 4th. So this is to authorize the following directors to attend virtually. Douglas, in past practice, did we send many people to this?
Mr. Chair, we've typically cost shared with Port Alberni and Tofino for the mayors of those 2 communities to go. So because the travel costs aren't here this year, we thought it would be useful to highlight the possibility of a few directors going. If the board was interested in having more than 4 participate, they could give us that number, and we could investigate what budget possibilities there are for that. We were able to come up with 4 fairly easily. What we observe is that the power of the FCM is and its ability to lobby on behalf of local government is driven partially by membership, but also partially by attendance at its conferences, and as well as some professional development opportunities. So we just put that out there for your consideration. Thank you.
Okay, Director Minions, please go ahead. And then Director Paulson.
Thank you. I was just going to say that this is a fantastic conference to attend. And at the city, we are authorizing this year because it is virtual. So there's such a savings in the cost with not needing travel. We're authorizing any councillor who would like to attend. And I think this would be a great year for the ACRD to not contribute to the city's costs so that more people can take advantage of these fantastic sessions. So it is 100% worthwhile for anyone who hasn't been before. And looking at the agenda for this year, it's a lot of very relevant challenges that we're going through in our area. Thank you.
So you're going to let Ron go? Okay, I think the next question I have is, Tom, do you know if Dan wants to go on our behalf, or is Tofino doing something similar?
Well, we unfortunately at our council meeting yesterday was 5 hours long, and we deferred that portion of it to we're going to have a special council meeting on Monday where this topic will be discussed. I know with personal conversations that Mayor Law is most certainly interested in going, and I know that we have some new councillors that in our by-election that I think have expressed anecdotally that they would be interested. So, and I think Tofino, once again, I would echo Mayor Minion's comments that we would probably incur those costs this year because we've had a higher budget because we haven't been traveling out to other conferences for travel. So I think we would be able to incur that cost and encourage other members of the AVRD to give them that opportunity for this board.
Okay, that's very much appreciated. That's great. Okay, Dr. Paulson, please go ahead.
I'm just going to kind of reiterate what Mayor Minions said, but I've attended one FCM in person, and I can't stress enough how much of an extraordinary experience that was for me. And so anybody that has the opportunity to book on in this year when costs are relatively low because of electronic participation, I highly encourage it. It's very enlightening, eye-opening, a chance to meet other people from across the nation, and it's a great experience. Thanks.
So I just had an alarm go off on my phone saying my daughter needs to be picked up and my wife's not home yet. So that means she's in kindergarten, so somebody has to be there to let her off. I'm wondering, Director McNabb, if you could take over the chair until I return.
Sure.
All right, thank you.
I'd be pleased.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't quite know where we're going with this particular motion, but would somebody like to move a certain number of members or the whole? Yes, Director Cote.
Thank you. So I have a question because this has always been a really great conference for members to go to, and really nobody from the regional district has gone in the past. Although there's been interest, it's just the cost. So I'm wondering, because we're not supporting the municipalities' costs, could we open that up to see if any of the directors want to go? Because I think it is a great opportunity with such a low cost to attend, and I'm just wondering also if you can just go for the number of days where the focus is in the area of your interest, if you had to pay for the whole conference or just days. But I would like to offer this opportunity to any director that would like to attend, just because of the low cost this year.
So it does say that the budget is available for 4 directors to attend. I don't know how many directors want to attend. I think that 4 and reporting back to the board is plenty. But I don't think I want to go myself. Maybe a show of hands of those that do wish to go.
Sorry, that was why I asked if you could just attend for like 1 or 2 days, if the cost would be less. But yes.
I don't see that in the report. Maybe somebody can answer that.
I think it's either you sign up or you don't. Yeah, so there's no sort of a la carte for the days.
Yeah, if I can just add, the only savings would be is the director, a daily remuneration would be cheaper, but not the registration.
Okay, so just a show of hand of the rural directors, how many would actually want to attend this? 1. Is that a hand up, Director Jack?
It can be, yes. I wouldn't mind attending. Like others, I might not be able to make it the whole time, but it does seem interesting.
My mountain of stuff to do is pretty high at the moment here. So I think 4 is plenty by the looks of this. So if we make that motion to allow 4 directors to attend, and those 4 directors can come out of the woodwork. Director Cote.
Okay, I'll make the recommendation that the Alberni Clayoquot Board of Directors authorize the following, up to 4 directors to attend the 2021 Federation of Canadian Municipalities Conference and Trade Show being held virtually from May 31st to June 4th, 2021. I don't imagine we need the name.
Seconder, Dr. Beckett. Any other conversation? All in favor? Oops, is that conversation, Director Shannon, or is that voting?
Well, kind of both. I mean, my struggle with
You
this
can't do
is,
both.
well, I guess I know there's no a la carte, but I mean, if you had two directors who could, I guess you can't register for two people on one thing and then you kind of share your meetings. I mean, I'd be interested in going. It's just that's like silage time and I won't have childcare, so I can't commit. And I don't want to spend the money if I can't commit.
So I think we get a little time to think about that, but anything else? We have a mover and a seconder to fund 4 directors coming out of the woodwork. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. And Chair Jack, you're back in the seat again.
All right, thank you. I just got word from my wife as I was stepping out that she actually picked up my daughter like 10 minutes ago. Would have been nice to know before I made you chair, but thank you so much for stepping in. At that point, we're at item F, which is the Sprout Lake Community Association Community Works Fund contributions. It looks like it's 2 separate motions. Terry, please go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So during the financial plan process, there was 2 amounts allocated from the Community Works funds to the Sprout Lake Community Association. The first one is $70,000 for phase 3 of the hall upgrade. So we are recommending that that is just done by an amendment to the existing agreement that we already have with the association. And then the second one is to upgrade their multi-purpose court for the amount of $75,000. So we'll do that one as a separate agreement because they're kind of under separate streams for Community Works funds. So just the 2 agreements, and then I will work with the association because they will need to do some signage requirements based on the amount that is being granted to them.
Thank you. I have Dr. McNabb and then Director Cote.
So I'm kind of wondering about process here. The Community Works Fund is basically the child of the rural areas. So that funding is money that comes to the rural areas and is to be dispensed mostly by the rural director's recommendation. So this hasn't come, to my knowledge, to a rural director meeting, and because I mean we're interested in spending the money and we're interested in allocating the money in a reasonable way. So I'm just kind of wondering why that is.
So the actual allocation of the money came to the electoral area committee in November and then again in January, and it was determined that these amounts would be included in the financial plan. So this is just to formalize the agreement with the association based on the direction that the electoral area committee provided.
So I was thinking there's another $150,000, and that was part of our discussion in November? Or just the initial amount was our part of our discussion?
An extra 150? No, so they already had from past years. We've allocated to the Sprout Lake Community Association 180 in the past in 2 separate amounts. And so now we're just increasing that amount from the 180 to the 250, which was what the electoral area committee directed to include in the financial plan, and then the 75 for the multi-use court. So this is just formalizing what the committee had directed.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
And Director Cote, please go ahead.
Thank you. I would like to make the motion that the Alberni Claycourt Regional District Board of Directors approve the letter of understanding with the Sprout Lake Community Association to increase the amount of community work funding from 180 to 250 for upgrading the community hall for recreational purposes.
Do we have a second? Thank you, Director McNabb. Any further comments? Questions?
The hall should be finished.
And with that, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. But how big it will be?
Pardon?
How big would it be?
The hall?
Yeah, once it's like completed.
It's not really good getting any bigger. It's being renovated.
Oh.
It has a new kitchen, new bathrooms, paint, renovations like to the entry hall, all the doors, windows, blinds. It's awesome, and I can't wait till COVID's over and we can have a meeting there and enjoy the renovations that have been done to the hall. It's a wonderful place.
Sounds good. I gotta name my family at some point, so.
It's
thinking of
just
it.
a little smaller than the athletic hall.
Oh, okay. Wow. I don't think I can fill
Quite
that.
a
It
bit
has 2
smaller.
floors.
Okay. Okay,
So
thank you.
I'd like to make the next motion that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors approve entering into the contribution agreement with the Sprout Lake Community Association outlining the terms and conditions for a multi-purpose court upgrade grant of $75,000 of community works funding.
Thank you, Director Shannon. Any further comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, that brings us to item G, which is the Asset Management Planning Program grant application.
So that is myself as well, Chair. So this is an opportunity through UBCM to apply for an asset management planning program grant. So the one item that when we developed these initial first versions of the asset management plan that we did not dive into because it's something that's kind of out of our knowledge base at this time was the natural assets and how they interact with our constructed assets. So this grant, if awarded, we would look at some educational opportunities for our asset management and grant coordinator, as well as possibly even some consultant time if we get to it as we start to explore what these things are and how they need to be incorporated into our plans. My understanding, which is limited at this point, is that it's not necessarily going to mean that we're trying to fund how these to maintain them, but even just identifying the natural assets that help us and making sure that we develop maybe some policies around protecting them, or just at least recognizing that they are part of our asset network. So just looking for support to submit this grant application.
Thank you. Director Roberts, please go ahead.
I'd like to make that motion that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors support the application to the Union of BC Municipalities, the UBCM Asset Management Planning Program grant for a $10,000 grant to expand the ACRD's asset management program to include the identification, use, and management of natural assets.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Dr. Shannon, thanks. Any further comments? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, and then item H, I believe, has to do with the Papa, I've already forgotten, Papa Yard rental agreement.
Through the chair, thank you. I'll speak a little bit to the information report further in the agenda, just because they're interrelated. So the combined city and ACRD working group on organics has been very effective over the last few months of basically doing a ton of planning in order to implement and roll out 3-stream waste collection for the city of Port Alberni, which is phase 1 for our regional organics diversion program. And with that comes a lot of planning and making sure that everything is in place. The team recently had to make a very difficult decision, which is to delay our start rollout. So we had been shooting for a May-June rollout date, and this was set almost a year ago. And it's been great. We've kept that date internal for the most part and just been talking in general terms around spring, summer, because we knew that that could get pushed and we don't want to set expectations that we can't meet. And as we were getting closer to this, there's always factors, and it has been a challenging year. And so it was determined that we should probably push it to make sure that we're getting optimum success. So we have set a fixed date, which is going to be September 13th for rollout. But that does require us to do a bit of storage of our bins, because as we line up everything, we have our bins purchased and coming in. So we need to store them for about 5 months. The bins will be starting to get delivered about mid to late August and be in place by September 13th. We had to look for places to find for storage, and there's really only one option available that provided security as well as the space that we needed, and that is the waterfront terminal that the Port Authority has. And they're excellent to work with, and they've provided a very cost competitive rate for us to use that space for 5 months. It's also a really high visual area, so we're going to use that opportunity to actually promote the program, because you're going to be able to see the bins sitting there on the waterfront, so we can talk about this program that's coming, and here are the bins for that. So I think it's a really good opportunity, and we're looking for board approval to enter into the lease agreement, basically for about 6 months, to rent that space at the Port Authority.
Okay. Any further comments or questions? I believe the recommendation is in bold at the top of the briefing note as well, if you have it. If not, we can share it on the screen. Maybe. Okay, I will read it out for everyone's benefit. It'll say that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors authorized the CAO to enter a 6-month agreement with the Port Alberni Port Authority for yard storage of curbside recycling and organic carts at a rate of $1,146 per month.
I'd make that motion, Chair.
Thank you, Director Coots, and seconded by everyone. I'll say Director Paulson. Any further comments? I think the only comment I have is that those carts are a hot commodity across the island right now. So like, guard those things, and like they're really hard to come by from what I understand. So I'm glad we have a strategic stock. So with that in mind, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, thank you, Jenny. Okay, that brings us item 9.1, planning matters for electoral area directors. 9.1A. Please go ahead, Mike.
Hi, everybody. So the first application is for it's the first part of a step in a variance application for a property on Mackenzie Road. This is a smaller property. It's approximately half an acre, but it is zoned A2, which has a minimum parcel size of 5 acres and a 50-foot front yard setback. So they're requesting a variance to 25 feet. I'd also note that there is a ravine at the back, and there's some fill on the rear of the property. So it certainly makes it is a reasonable request. Staff support the application, and I would also note that there are other properties that are in the vicinity that are zoned A1, and that zoning has a 25-foot setback. So it certainly fits within the neighborhood, and happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Dr. McNabb, please go ahead.
So in the APC, part of the discussion we had on this and the next one was the part about the subject of the neighbor's property being notified as per the Act. And it was, the thought of the APC that we really need to do an upgrade on the notification, perhaps using signage like has been used in other communities. The city of Port Alberni does it quite often, where the intentions are posted on the property, and it gives the neighborhood a better opportunity to understand that there is something happening versus having the notification done to 100 meters either way. That in a rural area, that's not many people. So it's something I think we really need to look at fairly swiftly in modifying the way that we use the Act in rural areas. So anyhow, I would move that the Board of Directors consider issuing development permit variance permit DVEs 20010, subject to neighboring properties being notified as per the Government Act S 499.
Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Shannon. Any further comments? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. All right, that brings us to the next one, a temporary use permit. Mike, please go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry. So this is a temporary use permit application for a short-term vacation rental in Beaver Creek. The applicants are proposing using a 2-bedroom accessory dwelling unit. This is an in-house suite that was part of the property. That part is permitted, so the variance, or sorry, the STR, the temporary use permit, is for the short-term vacation rental. This was also reviewed by the Advisory Planning Commission, and staff recommends proceeding to the next step.
Thank you. Dr. McNabb, go ahead.
So this particular one is in a neighborhood. So there are properties surrounding it relatively close. So there will be a sort of a better opportunity for neighbors to understand it, but still the postage of signage would be far more effective. But I would move that the Board of Directors consider issuing temporary use permit TUP 20004, subject to the neighboring properties being notified as per the Government Act S494.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? Thank you, Director Cote. Any further comments?
And to my knowledge, this is the first licensed one of these in Beaver Creek. There may be others, but they don't have licenses. They're not approved.
Director Roberts, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to make comment. I agree with Director McNabb's comment about posting the sign, and perhaps through yourself to a director or to Mr. Erg. Is that a problem with, if you're going to issue a variance or variance permit application, that you actually post a sign outside the property and maybe referring to the regional district's website to obtain details on this type of a variance?
Certainly, I'm happy to answer that question. So we do, for some of our development applications, there is a signage requirement. It's just the sign itself is only 8.5 by 11. It's a small sheet. So Director McNabb had talked to me about this before. It's certainly something that the board can consider, and we would need to update the development procedures bylaw, which outlines how we notify people. So that's certainly something that can be done. It's done in other communities, and that's something the board wants us to look at. We could certainly do that and bring it back to a subsequent board meeting.
Great, thank you. Are there any further comments? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion carried. Okay, and last up.
I'm going to excuse myself for the next one. Alex is going to speak to this.
Just appeared right as he said that. That's great. Please go ahead, Alex.
Good afternoon, everybody. So the next application is a temporary use permit application for property at 3240 Clayton Road in Cherry Creek. The permit would allow for the small scale commercial cider production within an existing detached garage on the 1 acre property. The cider would be produced under manufacturing license with the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch, and there would be no retail sale from the site or tasting room located on the property. The Cherry Creek APC reviewed this application on April 6th, where they supported it. And again, like the other ones that you've just considered, if the board considers issuing the temporary use permit, we will proceed with the neighbor notification process. Happy to answer any questions on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Director McNabb, please go ahead.
So I'm just kind of wondering, we've had some experience with coffee grinding and some of the side effects of that. I'm wondering if there is odors that come off of this type of production.
Oh, like roasting. Okay, yeah.
So their intent is to crush the fruit on site and do all the processing and fermentation. The fermentation is actually in an airlocked container, and what she had said is that they actually are producing on a home brewing scale at quite a large scale, and they haven't experienced any odors, and they haven't had any questions from the neighbors. I certainly do expect that we might get some of these questions through the neighbor notification process, but we will work with the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch to make sure that we have an opportunity to mitigate all of these concerns if there are any. I would also point out that they intend to do all of the the processing and crushing and operations within the building itself. So there's not going to be any outdoor storage of the material. You know, once they crush the apples, they're going to be trucked off site, and then everything will happen indoors. So don't anticipate any problems, but we will certainly work on that with the neighbor notification process. Thank you.
Not a scientist, but I did work in a Uber winery for maybe 2 years, and while the smell hits you when you work inside, it's not really noticeable on the outside of the building, so it should be fine. But I did have to carry my pay stubs in my car just in case I got pulled over. So with that in mind, there is one motion. It has two parts, however. Dr. Bodnar, please go ahead.
Yes, and just before I do, I just would like to say that I certainly agree with what Director McNabb said about letting the neighborhood know if some kind of signage could be put on for these out in the rural districts. I think it would be another way of letting the neighborhood know about what's going on. Anyway, I will move that the Board of Directors consider issuing temporary use permit TUP 21002, subject to neighboring properties being notified as per Local Government Act S494. Confirmation from a registered on-site wastewater practitioner that any waste material, liquid waste produced by the site of production use can be processed by the existing on-site sewage disposal system.
Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Beckett. Are there any further comments? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion carried. Did you have a comment, Dr. Cote, or were you just voting ahead of time?
Yeah, I was just thinking about the on-site sewage disposal system taking on any waste, and it's only 1 acre, so I guess we'll have to wait and see. If there is a problem with failing septic, I guess that would take the temporary use permit into consideration at that time.
That's correct. I can speak to that briefly here. So there's kind of two parts to this. So as a condition of approval, we've asked that they get a wastewater practitioner to confirm that the existing system is capable of accommodating that. So we'll be looking for that before we issue it. However, if an issue comes up in a year where the septic fails and this becomes an issue, we would both look at revoking the temporary use permit. We do have language that we build into the temporary use permit that allows us to take it away if they don't meet the provisions. And then we would also refer that to Island Health as well for their consideration. So there's two parts of looking into that, because I do think that is an important aspect of this.
Thank you.
Director Roberts, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I agree with the comments that that Director Cote made. It's been my experience, and I've done this for a number of years, and I take my apples in for processing and making into juice and cider, that the pulp that comes out of there is bone dry, and any of the juice that's captured, and I don't know beyond that what other wastewater product there might be, but certainly it would behoove us to follow through with that for sure. The areas that I've gone to have been up island, a couple of different places, and I've never seen any issue at all with that. But again, it's a good requirement for confirmation of a registered on-site wastewater practitioner. So thank you.
All righty. Okay, I think that officially takes us to the next item. If you want to come back, Mike. Thanks.
So we're on
9.2A.
So the regional growth strategy, so the Nanaimo regional district of the Nanaimo is required to refer adjacent local governments, which is us, and any amendments or regional growth strategies. So Alex has reviewed this, and staff recommends that the board accept the RDN regional growth strategy as presented and notify them of that.
Okay. Any further comments? There's a motion here. I'll check to see that we have quorum here. Okay, there's Director Paulson. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just make the motion if you're waiting for somebody to stand up. Move that the Board of Directors accept the proposed regional district in Nanaimo Regional Growth Strategy bylaw number 1615.04 2020 as presented.
Do you have a seconder? Thank you, Director Beckett. Any further comments? Dr. McNabb?
Could be subject to them approving ours.
Yeah.
I think we have to revisit the growth strategy. Okay. Any further comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Great. Bring us 9.2B, North Island College Market Garden Farm Worker Program.
Yeah, so there's an opportunity for the ACRD through our ag support program in regional planning to partner with an application through an application with North Island College, and if successful, we would administer. There is some funds in there to administer the grant as well, and then so the motion is to make staff recommending that we make the application, and if successful, authorize the CIO to execute the agreement. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Any comments or questions? Director Shannon, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm happy to move the motion. I just wanted to mention that this came through. It was kind of presented at our Ag Development Committee meeting. And I believe the city has done some work with North Island in the past with things like this with the Market Garden Worker Program. And Pat Deacon did the presentation to us and essentially said that it wasn't too cumbersome for the city to administer it, and it was the benefits far outweighed what work there might be to do it, and that he was really supportive of the ACRD helping out with this application. And then I'm happy to read it out if you would like that.
I think just saying you moving it is fine. It's okay. On the agenda. We've all seen it. Do we have a seconder though? Thank you, Director Bodner. Any further comments? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Great. So that brings us to reports. In this instance, staff reports. So we start off with an EOC update from Heather Zenner. Oh, there you go. Please go ahead.
Thank you. All right. So provincially, there are 873 new COVID cases, and these are yesterday's numbers, for a total of 9,756 active cases. Of these active cases, around 5,200 are active cases that are identified as having the variant of concern. Provincially, there's 377 people in hospital, with 116 of those people being in the intensive care unit. In Island Health, there are 467 active cases, with 190 of those active cases in Central Island. 1.1 million vaccines have been administered in BC, which equates to 1 in 4 eligible British Columbians have been vaccinated. The province has opened their online registration for booking vaccine appointments. The schedule that the province has currently posted allows for anyone 50 or older to register in the system. And then once you're registered, you will receive a notification from the province when you can book your appointment, and that'll be based on your age. There's been a lot of confusion with the public about registering and when they can actually book an appointment. So just because you're registered doesn't mean you're eligible to book an appointment just yet. If people don't have computers, they can also register with a 1-800 number by calling Island Health for a vaccine appointment. As well, anyone Indigenous 18 and older can book an appointment at any time, and those that are deemed clinically extremely vulnerable can book at any time. So the mass vaccination clinic in Port Alberni continues at the Athletic Hall. Bamfield had their vaccination clinic last week, and I heard that it went well. Vaccine clinics in Tofino and Ucluelet are underway and will be until the end of the month. The AstraZeneca vaccine is available to anyone aged 55 and older at select pharmacies in BC, including in Parksville and Nanaimo. And those are booked directly through the pharmacy, and most have online registration systems. Yeah, and that's about it for me for today.
Dr. McNabb, please go ahead.
Just to say that we had our vaccination yesterday at and it was seamless. That took a minute and a half to get through the front door and that part of it, and then a few minutes for them to discuss the impacts of the vaccination with the nurse, and had the needle sat there for 15 minutes to make sure we didn't fall over, and that was it. But very, very well done.
Great. Dr. Roberts, go ahead.
Yes, I was contemplating moving to Bamfield to get a shot, but however, we did get through, and we're both getting our vaccines at 5 o'clock and 5:05 today at the Parksville Community Center. So sorry, Bob, I would have liked to move there, but you know how it goes.
So you probably want to head out at the latest, probably 4:45, maybe 20:05. Okay. I don't think we'll go that far, but I don't want to curse us or anything.
No, I didn't either, so that's why I didn't bring it up before.
One thing I would state is that people who are vulnerable also include, I think, type 1 diabetes folks. So that's something that you may want to ask your constituents to look into, because there are people who are affected. I think severe rheumatoid arthritis is also one, because that's an immune system response as well. So there's plenty of things to look at to make sure that your relatives and friends get protected. So with that, also booking online is apparently a lot better than phoning like I did, because I'm slated for the 21st, and a friend of mine who did it at the same time did it online, and she got in the next week. So yeah, are there any other comments? Dr. Cote?
Thank you. I know that the majority of shots are being given out at the Athletic Hall, but I know that this past week there was a clinic at the Friendship Center. Has that now closed?
I actually don't have the details on the Friendship Center, but I know that they were there's 3 Friendship Centers across the province, and we were one of them. So I know that there's been vaccines. I know the Shuswap First Nation also had a clinic, and they vaccinated 670 people. So there's been some other clinics, as well as some targeted populations in the community that have received their vaccine.
The one at the Friendship Center was targeted. It was for homeless and vulnerable individuals. And Tashon, I think they've actually had 2 full rounds now. So I'm really happy to see that. Any further comments? Oh, go ahead, please.
I heard there was lineups for the excess that wasn't taken up. So I actually know a few people that went and had early shots because of there was a call out for drop-in. So, but I do believe that that's closed now. I tried to book there, but couldn't. So
I read an article somewhere actually talking about teachers who were hovering around places like that, at least in the Lower Mainland, because I think this was before teachers got on the essential list. So I think that's being handled separately now. Okay. Did you get like any of that fatigue people were talking about? Did you get Moderna or sorry, Director Johnson?
I got the Moderna.
Yeah.
Little bit of stomach.
Yeah, because I know that Director Cole had that, but she's
I got Moderna too, My arm's a wee bit sore. That's it.
That's good to know.
I could barely, after about 3 hours, I could barely lift my arm, but I can go that high now.
Yeah, my wife was the same. Hers was more dramatic than mine.
Okay, I think that's it for the EOC report. Does anyone have anything to pull out on the rest of the staff reports? Director McNabb, please go ahead, and then Director Cote.
So just with regards to Sprout Lake Marine Patrol, I didn't understand what the outcome of this is. Are we planning to provide this? And I mean, it almost seems like, why bother? Quite a sort of thing. I don't know what the impact to the public is going to be, like as far as investment versus the result. So maybe Jenny could answer that.
Through the chair, we are going to be providing the Sprout Lake Marine Patrol this summer. We won't be able to use the boat, but we will be able to provide education and support services at the boat launch. What we've heard from the board and the community is that they still feel that there is a strong value from having the Sprout Lake Marine Patrol, even if we can't use the boat. The health and safety consultants did a great job of assessing everything and provided us with some amazing procedures that we're going to be able to follow. And we're going to make sure that they're very safe while they're providing the program. And this year, what we are going to do is we're going to supplement their traditional program with a bit of social media. So we think that it, getting with the times, everyone's on Zoom, we're going to try and pick up some social media, and we might even have a broader appeal to more people in the community. Because there is a lot about boating safety and environmental safety, and we feel that there's a lot of issues that these young adults can help educate on. So we are going to move forward with the program. It'll just be a little different than it has in the past.
Thank you for that. I would just note we're chatting in the background. I asked a question about whether or not PFDs were still being lent out, and I'm really loaned out. It's not lent, and that is good to see that it is happening. And yeah, with the sanitizing is great. From what I understand, surfaces, especially textiles, are actually pretty safe if you leave them out in the sun as well. So I think that's doubly so and in good shape. Okay. Could we have a motion to, oh, sorry, Director McNabb, please go ahead, and then Director Cote.
What's the cost? What's the converted to cost of this going to be?
The cost, and memory serves me correct, I think it's $40,000 is the annual budget. So we have supplements from the grant funding through the transportation. So that's to help us provide the education program. And it'll be the same price as previously because we're still going to be hiring 4 full-time young adults.
Wow.
Terry disappeared, so that was right. Okay, Dr. Cote.
Thank you. Thank you to staff for getting the information from the consultant, whoever it was, and getting this program going. It is valuable. And just wanted to point out also that we do have that federal transportation grant to help to educate people, and working hopefully with the RCMP and Coast Guard again this summer, so that they can actually be out on the water and making that connection where needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Cote. Could we get a motion to to receive the reports? Thank you, Director Cote, and seconded by Director McNabb. Any further comments? Go ahead, Doug.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to acknowledge the good work on 10.1D with respect to the airport relief grants. Each of the airports will be getting $180,000, and we'll be coming back to the board about how best to use those funds as well. Hopefully the first board meeting in May. And so a special shout out and thanks very much to Mark Fortune and Jenny Brunn and to Terry Fong. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so that brings us past this. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Great. Okay, we don't have any committee reports, nor other reports, nor unfinished business, but Director Cote very smartly reminded me of something I completely missed mentioning. So if you wanted to do that.
Oh, okay. I would like to have staff, the chair, write a letter congratulating the new Hopachesset Council-elect.
Okay, so I'm wondering if we could, do we have a seconder for that? I think this is something that we need 2/3. Thanks, Director Bodner. Okay, any further comments? All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, so I think that's a very important thing to note is that I was hoping to have mentioned this at the very beginning when we recognized that we were doing our business on Hopachesset territory. But yes, Hopachesset has recently had an election with quite a bit of change, and it's exciting. So we'll move into the future together, hopefully, with that. And the other thing that I'd like to mention, just without a decision being made, is that the Cayuga Checklisset First Nation, pretty far north from us, is officially joining the Strathcona Regional District today. So I am quite happy to see that. That's the last or the final and fifth First Nation in the Monmouth Treaty Society and the Monmouth Treaty Party to join a regional district. So we're all members now, and that's something I'm quite happy to see. So that's something we will have a party at some point in the future. Dr. Cote, please go ahead.
Thank you. Should we also send them a letter of congratulations?
I think that would be a good idea if we were to entertain that. So I'll thank you, Director Roberts, and seconded by Director Shannon. I think we do need to do the 2/3 thing again. So if we could, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. All right, thank you so much. Okay, so with that in mind, that brings us to the recessing of this for the hospital district. Director Shannon, please go ahead.
Sorry, I just have a quick question, and a comment. I'll make my comment first. I worked in Cayuga for 2 summers at a fishing lodge, and it's beautiful up there, so that's very cool. And second, is there a reason why we don't have committee reports today?
I thought they were the other week, or like the other meeting.
Yes, they're done at the end of the month.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Getting ahead of myself. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I prepped for the WEBAG meeting, and I have 2 more weeks. So with that, could we have a motion to, oh no, we have to do question period first. Wendy, do we have any questions or comments online?
No, Mr. Chair, we have not received any questions or comments respecting an agenda item today.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks.
So that brings us to recess. Could we have a motion to move into recess, please? Okay, Director Paulson, Dr. Beckett, all those in favor? Motion carried. Okay.
So I don't know if anybody wants to take a bio break at this point in time, or we leave it to after this short meeting and worry about it then, or just carry on. Everybody's good? Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Alberni-Clayquat Regional District Hospital District. And I'd like to recognize that we are meeting primarily on the territories of the Tishat and the Hopachesset First Nations, and that we're scattered all over the countryside. So there are many other nations that need to be recognized, but that we appreciate the cooperation and the approval of all of our First Nations. So I'd like to ask for an approval of agenda. Does anybody want any add to, did we get somebody to move that motion? Sorry, who did that? Tanya and Director Cote. And does anybody need to add anything to this? No, we're good. All in favor? Carried. Adoption of the minutes of our March 10th, 2021 meeting. Director Shannon and
second.
Director Bodner. Anything errors or omissions? No, all in favor? Anybody opposed? Didn't like what they saw? No, we're good. Okay, correspondence for information with regards to Peace River Regional Hospital District. Everybody's read that. I'd like to motion to approve. Anybody like to move or motion to receive rather?
Move to receive.
And second, saw second, Director Stern. Any comments on this? All in favor? Carried. Request for decisions and bylaws that the Alberni-Claycott Regional District Board of Directors approve the 2020 audited financial statements for the Alberni-Claycott Regional Hospital District as presented. Somebody would move that. Director Steer and Director Bodner. Any comments on this? Did we spend too much money? We're all good? All in favor? Carried. Okay, handy dandy reports. Director Beckett. Banfield Health Center.
Thank you kindly, Mr. Chair. As reported earlier, Banfield did receive their vaccines last week, and they gave 235 vaccinations. It's a wonderful step for our two communities. Thank you very much. That's my report.
Pretty good when there's only 8 people there.
Multiple arms. If no one wants to drive the road, so we got our second shot early.
Okay, Alberni-Claycott Continuing Care Society. I'll make half of this and Ron can fill in the blanks afterwards. But one of the things that did come out of this meeting was that I guess all the jabbering helped because the provincial government came up with $300,000 to fix the roof on Echo. And that's a good thing. And there was other capital issues that were addressed as well. So budgeting is still an issue with around COVID and the expenses of COVID and who pays what. And it was announced that they actually, after all this time, did receive the final portion of the hero pay. And that was allocated to the hourly workers in the center. So that's all taken care of, and we did get the final draft of the 3-year approval of our CARP registration, which is a real, in this sort of environment, a very, very recognizable achievement that they actually met the criteria to be certified by that organization. So, and 3-year is the highest level that they can actually award. So, Ron, you got anything else?
No, I think you pretty well covered it, John. The only thing that I would add is they are actually in the process of looking at some visitation on the 2 sites, and of course, those will be under very stringent conditions, but I think for the residents there who are probably suffering a lot of separation anxiety from their families and stuff, this is really good news. And over 90% of both facilities have been vaccinated, including staff. So that's exciting news for those 2 organizations.
So one of the examples of the cost issues around COVID was that while they announced that there was going to be visitation, they withdrew the funding for the greeter at the door to meet the people that were coming in. So it's kind of doesn't make much sense, but hopefully it'll come back again once they realize that that sort of has to be. On to the next thing. West Coast Native Healthcare Society, Dr. Cote.
No report.
Okay.
They're not getting together these days.
The Fino General Hospital. We got to have a bunch of stuff coming out of there.
Thank you, Chair. I do have a couple of things today, and a lot of them you've probably heard before, but the trauma room updates have commenced and hopefully be completed by the May long weekend. And this is a direct quote from Dr. Carrie Marshall that we're just still putting lipstick on a pig, and there are still many challenges that are coming forward. The electrical work that we had talked about earlier is continuing, and an interesting note at how that affects operations at a small regional hospital is the one room that's being currently worked on is a 4-bedroom unit, and that is out of commission right now, which leaves us with only 6 beds, which ties into the next component where we have in the hospital currently, most of those beds are filled with long-term care patients who are looking for continuing care. Those individuals are on a waiting list, and that they've been on that list for quite some time, over 6 months in wait time in there. So it is a serious concern for many on the West Coast here. It's a continuing issue in the region, and one that needs some immediate attention to. We also have one of our critical positions is vacant, 2 vacancies with our Aboriginal liaison worker, a very critical position at the hospital. And it is one that we are actively looking for to be filled, which ties in once again with another issue, which is of course housing and the recruitment and retention of these professionals that we're trying to attract to the coast to provide these services. And this is an issue that we know is regional in nature, and the help that we needed in our discussions with Island Health, it is part of their issue as well. And we just want to make it clear that we all need to work together to address this issue. It's just not an individual community effort that needs to go on. The other thing, of course, and we've talked about, and I won't continue about but it's been brought up by the site director as well as our general physicians there, is the challenges around the aging infrastructure. And my quote was that we often are putting Band-Aids on arterial wounds at our center here. And I just wanted to thank the board for their continued support and moving these issues forward. Thank you.
So one of the things that has recently been relaxed within the last 2 weeks is the admission protocol for long-term care, so that the opportunity for folks to actually enter long-term care will be a lot better. I mean, it was expensive and difficult to actually have people admitted to long-term care facilities prior to this relaxation. So that might help.
Yeah.
And we've got Alberta Claycott Health Network.
Okay, we have no report right now. There's a workshop that's coming, but I'll have more information on it later. Thank you.
Okay, and Alberta West Coast General Hospital. So I've been chasing for an answer with regards to the emergency room award of the contract, and I've asked 3 times. Still, the only answer I'm getting is we hope to have a news release shortly. So getting together with these people on the ground is impossible. So the only way that we can do it is in some of the meetings that they're holding. There is more information coming through the pipeline than there previously was. The ones that I'm sending to Heather and she's forwarding, at least we're getting that information, but I don't know what's taking so long to award the contract for this thing, but I'll just keep asking and see what happens. Okay, we're going to need late business. Whoops, we need to receive those reports, A to G. Director Shannon, Director Roberts, any questions on any of that? Yes, Director Roberts.
Through the chair, just to let you know, I had my wife in for a procedure on Tuesday, and she came through it just fine. And her comment was they treated her like royalty in the hospital. Everything went well. It was smooth. It was efficient. There was actually 2 greeters at the door, making sure that the COVID protocols were in place. And anyway, it was excellent. She just had nothing but good to say about it. So let's keep up the good work, and I'm sure they'll come through for us. Thank you.
Yep, we'll get there. Okay, so on the motion to receive, all in favor? Anybody opposed? Want to keep talking? Okay, motion to adjourn. Who's got their hand up? Director Bodner and Director Paulson. So all in favor? Anybody opposed? 6 people opposed. Oh, There you go. On to the next thing.
Okay, so that returns us to the main agenda. And for our purposes, we'll be going in camera for one stated purpose, which I'll read out, which is a motion to close the meeting to the public as per the community charter under sections 92B, the consideration of information received and held in confidence relating to negotiations between the regional district and a provincial government or the federal government or both, or between a provincial government or the federal government or both and a third party. Could we have a motion to go in camera, please? Thank you, Director Roberts and Director Beckett. Any further comments?